When Harlem Nights hit theaters in 1989, it wasn't just another movie, it was a star-studded event. Written, directed, and headlined by Eddie Murphy, alongside comedy greats Richard Pryor and Red Foxx, the film blended sharp humor, gritty drama, and unforgettable style. Over the years, it earned cult classic status, loved for its quick wit and powerhouse performances. But now, more than 35 years later in 2025, where are the cast members who made it shine? Some have tragically passed away, others stepped back from Hollywood, and a few continue to thrive in the spotlight. Here's what happened to the Harlem Nights cast then and now. Richard Pryor was born on December 1st, 1940, and played Sugar Ray in 1989 at age 49. On screen, Sugar Ray is at once fatherly and ferocious, a nightclub boss who masks hard survival instincts with a lopsided grin, and Pryor lent him a weary, rueful dignity that made the film's moral compromises feel personal. Pryor's comic voice was forged in a childhood no one made room to soften, raised in and around his grandmother's brothel in Peoria, exposed early to violence, prostitution, and a brutal alcohol-soaked household. He learned to laugh as a way to survive and to hide the scars. That same instinct pushed him into stand-up and film, but fame didn't fix the fractures, it amplified them. His career was a series of incandescent peaks and self-inflicted troughs, a breakthrough in the 1970s that turned him into America's most fearless comic, followed by public ruptures fueled by addiction, a notorious 1980 freebasing explosion that left him badly burned, and later a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis that turned Pryor's physical decline into a public heartbreaking act. He was mercilessly candid about sex race and pain on stage, yet off stage he struggled with marriages, volatile relationships, and an estate that would end in courtroom battles. His second marriage to Jennifer Lee and later family disputes over recordings and rights left long legal aftershocks. Pryor could charm producers and then terrify them with unpredictability, walking off sets, changing creative demands, and sometimes letting addiction dictate choices. And his most damaging professional blows were the projects shelved or hemorrhaged by those interruptions. He kept a reservoir of unreleased material and memorabilia that became the subject of prolonged probate skirmishes, and even his generosity to friends and fellow comics was shadowed by financial mismanagement and the cost of medical care. Pryor died on December 10, 2005 in Los Angeles of a heart attack after years battling illness. His estate, reported widely to be worth in the tens of millions, included real estate royalties and an archive of recordings that fueled disputes among heirs and his widow. Danny Aiello was born on June 20, 1933, and played Phil Cantone in 1989 at age 56. Cantone's brutish swagger and snarling authority made him a perfect Spike Lee-era foil, and Aiello's gift was to make such unpleasant men oddly human, their cruelties grounded in the same street-bred survival instincts that shaped Aiello himself. Raised in a working-class Italian-American household in Manhattan and the Bronx, Aiello learned toughness, early school interruptions. In early enlistment in the Army, odd jobs and stints as a bouncer and union activist taught him how to read a room and how to hold his ground. His career was the slow burn of a late bloomer, decades of small parts, a daytime Emmy, then an Oscar-nominated turn in Do the Right Thing that at once cemented his reputation and typecast him into a string of hard-edge roles. Aiello was candid and sometimes combustible off-camera, known to challenge directors, rewrite lines, and fight for what he saw as honest performances, which won him respect, but also occasional professional reprisals. He weathered personal tragedies as well. The deaths in his family, including the loss of his son, Danny Aiello III in 2010, cut deep and reshaped his priorities, while long marriage strains and the pressures of breadwinning in a family of performers added tension behind closed doors. Aiello parlayed his persona into singing recordings and a small but steady real estate foothold in New Jersey, cultivating a modest empire of roles, residuals, and music projects rather than blockbuster wealth. He died after a brief illness on December 12, 2019 at 86 in Saddle River, New Jersey. Obituaries and financial profiles place his estate in the low millions, supported by decades of film work, soundtrack contributions, and property. A working-class legend who kept his private losses private and left a body of work that kept paying his way. Della Reese, born July 6, 1931 in Detroit, Michigan, was 58 when she embodied Vera in Harlem Nights, a razor-tongued, no-nonsense powerhouse whose sharp wit and devastating right hook made her one of the film's most unforgettable presences. Reese played Vera as fierce yet fiercely loyal, reflecting her own blend of charm and authority. Her childhood in Detroit's Black Bottom neighborhood was one of relentless struggle. The daughter of a steel worker who died when she was a teen, she worked as a waitress and sang in church to help support her family, masking her fatigue with a dazzling stage presence that would define her career. She clawed her way into the entertainment industry in the 1950s, navigating racism, predatory record contracts, and the dismissive attitudes of male executives. Her ascent was littered with quiet battles confronting club owners over unpaid wages, publicly calling out television producers who tried to soften her personality, and nearly losing her career in the 1970s after her ambitious variety show failed due to network politics and a smear campaign from a rival host. Personally, Reese endured turbulent marriages, including one in which financial mismanagement by her spouse left her with significant debt before finding stability later in life. She suffered a near-fatal brain aneurysm in 1979, which left her temporarily unable to walk and forced her to rebuild her career from scratch, eventually leading to her iconic role in Touched by an Angel. Off camera, she was known to keep a small circle, and industry insiders whispered about heated closed-door meetings where she fiercely protected her contracts and creative control. Reese died on November 19, 2017 in Los Angeles from natural causes at 86. Her $3 million estate included her Beverly Hills home, ongoing royalties from music and television, a valuable collection of gospel archives, and fine jewelry, much of which was later donated to churches and cultural institutions in accordance with her will. Redd Foxx was born on December 9, 1922, and played Benny Wilson in 1989 at age 67. Benny's coarse bravado and comic nastiness in Harlem Nights were quintessential Foxx, a man who used profanity and bluster as armor, and who turned filth into a kind of folk wisdom that audiences loved and radio censors loathed. Foxx's youth was one of bare survival, leaving home early, learning to hustle in Midwestern and Chicago nightclub circuits, sharpening a raunchy comedy that became his tradecraft, but that same hunger warped into self-sabotage as his earnings swelled. Foxx's professional life reads as both triumph and cautionary tale, from the underground party records that made him king of adult comedy to the mainstream mega hit Sanford and Son. He conquered formats but repeatedly collided with business realities. The late career spectacle of federal agents hauling away prized possessions from his Las Vegas home after tax liens exposed a darker side, chronic financial neglect, gambling, and ill-advised spending left him repeatedly in the IRS's crosshairs, culminating in high-profile seizures in 1989, and reports that by his death, his estate faced multi-million-dollar tax liabilities. Industry insiders remember a man who could be generous to protégés and reckless with contracts, one who spent on cars, homes, and jewelry, but neglected the paperwork that keeps fortune intact. Personal life was equally turbulent. Multiple marriages, messy divorces, and public spats over money and paternity made headlines that often eclipsed his enduring talent. The humiliating public auctioning of his belongings and the image of a comic stripped down to a single bed lingered as a grotesque counterpoint to his clever stage persona. Foxx collapsed rehearsing a TV script and died of a heart attack on October 11, 1991 at 68 in Los Angeles. At death, his finances were entangled with back taxes and bankruptcy filings, leaving his legacy as a towering comedic influence shadowed by fiscal ruin. Michael Lerner, born June 22, 1941 in Brooklyn, New York, was 48 when Harlem Nights premiered in 1989, stepping into the role of Bugsy Calhoun, the bombastic, money-hungry mob boss whose ruthless ambition and volcanic temper made him the film's most dangerous force. On screen, Lerner's Bugsy was pure intimidation, wrapped in flashy suits, a performance that thrilled audiences while echoing the actor's own ability to dominate any room. Off-screen, his journey was forged in hardship raised above his father's struggling fish market. Lerner endured financial scarcity, classmates mocking his size, and a mother who withdrew into silence after the death of her younger child. He fought his way into acting by a scholarship, eventually studying in London, where he lodged for a time with John Lennon and Yoko Ono, a period filled with wild parties and experimental film appearances that hinted at his eccentric streak. His career was a roller coaster. He lost major roles for bluntly insulting scripts in front of producers, clashed with directors over incompetent blocking, and was rumored to sabotage co-star scenes by deliberately upstaging them. In one infamous incident on a gangster set, he reportedly stormed off mid-shoot after a shouting match over line changes, costing the production a day's filming. Personally, Lerner was a poker shark with a taste for Cuban cigars and long nights in underground games that sometimes left him in debt to questionable figures. His love life was a chain of fleeting romances with actresses and socialites, none of which endured under the weight of his unpredictable moods. By the late 1990s, his career slowed, though he remained a respected character actor in Europe, and the U.S. Lerner died on April 8, 2023, in Burbank, California, from complications related to brain seizures at age 81. His $3 million estate encompassed 2 Manhattan apartments, a valuable archive of film memorabilia, rare Art Deco furniture, and a climate-controlled vault of collectible cigars. Several assets were discreetly sold posthumously to cover old gambling markers and lingering contractual disputes. Born September 5, 1964 in Los Angeles, California, was just 25 when he appeared as Tommy Smalls in Harlem Nights, the stylish, swaggering hustler whose cockiness and poor judgment sealed his fate early in the story. Ford infused Smalls with charisma and bravado, but his real life began in far humbler surroundings. Raised by a single mother who juggled multiple jobs, he often went without deflecting childhood teasing, with humor that hinted at his future as a comedian. Breaking into Hollywood was a grind of small theater productions and commercial auditions before his breakthrough in Martin, where his deadpan delivery became iconic. Yet with fame came frustrations, network typecasting, and the collapse of a proposed Martin spin-off after contractual disputes marked his biggest career disappointment. Ford was outspoken in interviews about the shallow nature of the industry, a candor that some believe cost him roles. Behind his positive public persona as a motivational speaker and children's book author, his personal life was less serene. A painful divorce left him financially strained, and a series of bad investments in independent stage productions drained much of his savings. Health problems, particularly hypertension, were a quiet but constant concern, worsened by an intense work schedule and travel for speaking engagements. In the years before his death, he poured energy into community activism and anti-bullying campaigns, often funding projects from his own pocket, despite dwindling income. Ford died on October 12, 2016 in Noonan, Georgia, from a ruptured abdominal aneurysm at just 52. His $2 million estate comprised modest real estate holdings in Georgia and California, residuals from decades of TV work, his authored children's books, and a collection of custom suits and watches. The latter were auctioned to fund scholarships in his name, a legacy that endured long after the cameras stopped rolling. Berinda Tolbert, born November 4, 1949 in Charlotte, North Carolina, was 40 when she played Annie in Harlem Nights. The elegant, calm presence whose quiet poise grounded the film's chaos. Annie's warmth and understated grace mirrored Tolbert's real-life ability to bring dignity to even the smallest roles, but her early life was far less serene. Growing up in the segregated South, she endured taunts over her complexion, faced school segregation battles firsthand, and kept her ambitions to act largely secret, fearing ridicule. A graduate of the University of North Carolina School of the Arts, she initially struggled in New York City working menial jobs while facing casting rooms that treated her as either too pretty for serious roles or too black for mainstream parts. Fame came with The Jeffersons, where she played Jenny Willis Jefferson for over a decade. But the role became a double-edged sword. Producers resisted giving her complex storylines, and she later admitted to feeling trapped by the part. Her biggest professional disappointment came in the late 80s when she was replaced during pre-production on a high-profile drama after objecting to racially stereotyped dialogue, a decision that quietly cost her work in certain circles. Married to journalist Bob Reed since 1979, she kept her personal life fiercely private, avoiding public events and refusing to feed the tabloid appetite for celebrity marriages. She retired from acting in 2013, reportedly disillusioned with Hollywood's shrinking opportunities for older black actresses. Now 75, she lives quietly between Los Angeles and North Carolina, investing in small real estate projects and occasionally teaching acting workshops. Her net worth, around $1 million, is sustained through residuals, property holdings, and careful financial planning, a quiet legacy from a career that weathered both typecasting and quiet acts of defiance. Jasmine Guy was born on March 10, 1962, and played Dominique LaRue in 1989 at age 27. In Harlem Nights, she is the deliciously dangerous pivot of several scenes. Dominique's silk and venom moves give the movie a threat of hypnotic menace that lingers after the credits. The role amplified an image audiences already knew from a different world, a woman who can be both comic and quietly ferocious. Behind that on-screen polish lies a childhood of contradictions, born to mixed-race parents forced early into a tight discipline of posture and control. She learned to wear performance as protection from teasing and marginalization. That craft paid off. She rose through school days and television to become a peerless scene stealer. But the climb left scars, contract battles, pay disputes, and the wearying work of being the beautiful, smart black woman in an industry that often wanted only one of those qualities at a time. Guy's career highlights are luminous: an ACP Image Award stage work, a recording contract, and later directing and authorship. She wrote a biography of Afeni Shakur, but they were punctuated by professional slams being typecast, losing lead chances to less versatile names, and a decade where TV reruns out-earned new offers. Her personal life has been quieter than the gossip pages might hope. A marriage to Terrence Duckett produced a daughter and ended in divorce, and she has maintained close, sometimes headline-making friendships, notably with Tupac Shakur. Today at 63, she balances stage, occasional screen parts, and cultural work, and most financial trackers peg her net worth in the low millions, evidence that steady craft-savvy residuals and smart property decisions can cement a modest Hollywood fortune rather than a tabloid fortune. Jitu Cumbuka, born on March 4, 1940 in Helena, Alabama, was 49 when he brought to life the toothless drunk gambler in Harlem Nights. 1989, a shambling, unlucky dice player whose comic misfortune ended with him getting shot, a moment of absurd chaos in the film's tension. On screen, his loud, reckless energy masked desperation. Off-screen, his own life carried a similar blend of humor and hardship. Raised in the strict home of a Baptist minister father and a deeply religious mother, Cumbuka endured a childhood of suffocating rules, beatings for minor infractions, and the stifling expectation to enter the ministry. Instead, he rebelled quietly, masking his frustrations with charm and using the church stage to hone his performance skills. Hollywood offered both opportunity and humiliation. He fought to break free from being cast as criminals, drunks, or enslaved men. And in 1982, after openly criticizing a network's racial stereotyping during a press junket, he found himself unofficially blacklisted from major television work for years. His biggest heartbreak professionally was losing a lead role in a prestige stage production when a white co-star allegedly refused to work opposite him, a scandal that never made headlines. Personally, his 2 marriages collapsed under the strain of his constant touring, and his relationship with his children was marked by long absences and unspoken resentments. He battled heavy drinking during the 1970s before turning toward faith writing and producing gospel musicals that reflected his spiritual core. In 2011, he published his autobiography, A Giant to Remember, exposing Hollywood's unspoken barriers for black actors. Diagnosed with cancer in early 2017, he fought with quiet dignity but died on July 4th that year in Atlanta at 77. His $1 million estate, comprised of a modest home, residuals from decades of film, TV, and theater, and a collection of personal scripts, was split among relatives, many of whom had little contact with him in his final years. Vic Polizos was born on August 12, 1947, and was 42 when he stepped into the role of Richie Vento in Harlem Nights. 1989, a brash, intimidating mob enforcer whose presence loomed like a loaded gun in every scene. Born to Greek immigrant parents in a cramped working-class neighborhood, His early years were defined by relentless hard work. His father juggled multiple low-paying jobs while his mother took in sewing, and Vic himself was sent to work as soon as he could carry crates. He left school early, drawn first to the chaotic energy of street life and later to the discipline of the stage, where he discovered that the same intensity that kept him safe in rough neighborhoods could command an audience. His road into Hollywood was slow and jagged, years of regional theater touring productions and underpaid TV walk-ons. He was repeatedly told he was too intense for leading man roles, but too good-looking for background heavies, a paradox that kept him hovering on the edges of breakthrough. The 1980s brought flashes of promise, but also setbacks. He was abruptly written out of a promising TV pilot after clashing with a producer over script rewrites, and a recurring role on another series evaporated when a new showrunner cut his character without warning. Off-set, Polizos was known for meticulous preparation and a stubborn refusal to phone in performance traits that won him devoted directors, but also made him high maintenance in the eyes of some producers. While he avoided the kind of scandals that wrecked careers, insiders whispered about occasional gambling habits that may have forced him to take on smaller, less desirable roles to keep income steady. Now in his late 70s, Polizos lives quietly, splitting his time between a modest home in Los Angeles and a small property in Palm Springs, making the occasional television appearance and indulging in local theater. At 78, his net worth, estimated at around $1.5 million, is a testament to steady work. Careful real estate investments and the residuals that come from decades of television and film, a career built not on overnight stardom, but on the unshakable work ethic of a man who has always known the value of fighting for his place. Charlie Murphy, born July 12, 1959, stepped into Harlem Nights in 1989 at age 30 as Jimmy, a sharp-eyed, tough-skinned enforcer whose loyalty to his crew was matched by an undercurrent of dry-cutting humor. That mix of grit and wit came from Murphy's own Brooklyn upbringing, where an absent father, a hardworking mother, and the lure of the streets shaped him into a fighter. By his teens, he was caught up in petty crime, and a robbery charge landed him in jail before he turned 18. A stint in the Navy brought discipline, but also reinforced his distrust of authority. After his release, he drifted into entertainment through Eddie Murphy's meteoric success working security and writing before edging into acting. For years, he fought the perception of being in his brother's shadow, enduring backhanded compliments from industry insiders and outright dismissals from casting directors. His breakout came not in film, but on Chappelle's Show, where true Hollywood stories became comedy canon. But behind the laughs, Charlie was known for a short fuse. Crew members recalled him walking off set mid-shoot over rewrites, and one heated dispute with a producer over unpaid wages ended with security intervening. His personal life was equally turbulent, a deep love for his wife, Tisha. Taylor was cut short by her death from cancer in 2009, leaving him a single father to 2 children. Though he returned to stand-up and voice acting, his relentless touring schedule masked a silent battle with leukemia, which he kept private until the disease had advanced. On April 12, 2017, Murphy died in New York City at 57. His $2.5 million estate, comprising real estate royalties and earnings from stand-up tours, was left to his children, along with a reputation as a man who clawed his way out from under a famous surname to leave his own mark, even if the fight cost him dearly. Dan Shaw, born July 14, 1952 in Chicago, Illinois, was 37 when he portrayed Jack Jenkins in Harlem Nights, a tough, street-smart boxer whose loyalty and physical prowess made him an unshakable ally in the film's underworld conflicts. Shaw's intensity in the role reflected his real-life martial arts mastery, black belts in judo, jiu-jitsu, and karate skills that became both a calling card and a curse, as Hollywood often saw him only as the fighter type. Raised in Chicago's South Side by a jazz saxophonist, Father Shaw grew up surrounded by music, but also by poverty, neighborhood violence, and the instability of a family fractured by divorce. Early in his career, he took bit parts to survive, enduring years of auditions where he was told he was too intimidating for leading man roles. His biggest career blow came in the late 90s, when he was attached to star in a boxing biopic based on a real champion. After months of training, the financing collapsed, leaving him unemployed and embittered for nearly 3 years. Known for his discipline on set, Shaw could also be exacting to the point of friction. One director recalled him refusing to shoot a fight scene until the choreography was reworked for authenticity. Though he has had several long-term relationships, he never married, citing his unwillingness to compromise his independence. Friends describe him as guarded, loyal, and intensely private, a man who prefers mentoring young actors to attending Hollywood parties. Now 73, Shaw works selectively in film and television with a net worth of about $1.5 million tied to residuals investments and a collection of sports memorabilia. His career stands as proof of both the rewards and costs of refusing to be reshaped by the industry. Lela Rochon was born on April 17, 1964, and played Sunshine in 1989 at age 25. Sunshine is the incandescent troublemaker of Harlem Nights, the kind of magnetism that can upend a respectable life in a single luminous scene. And Rochon's turn made the character a shorthand for seductive consequence. Her early life in Torrance was not a Hollywood origin myth. The daughter of a nurse practitioner and a graphic artist, she learned the twin lessons of beauty and necessity, fending off schoolyard insults and learning to translate vulnerability into presence. That translation worked. Small commercials and TV spots led to films, and by the mid-1990s, she was a leading face in Waiting to Exhale and other high-profile projects. But fame brought its own fractures. Rochon has been candid about the career ceilings she encountered, being boxed into roles that emphasized looks over depth, and her personal life carried public storms. 2 marriages, motherhood, and the very public fallout when paparazzi photographed her husband, director Antoine Fuqua, kissing Nicole Murphy while the marriage was ongoing, a scandal that forced a private woman into the glare of tabloid theater. Financially, sources differ wildly. Some trackers list her wealth as being bolstered significantly by her husband's assets. Figures in the tens of millions appear in several outlets, while other estimates place her individual net worth more conservatively, reflecting residuals, endorsement earnings, and real estate holdings. At 61, she's known to have poured energy into selective acting, family privacy, and philanthropic work in recent years. Whatever exact number appears on a chart, the through line is clear. Rochon converted early objectification into durable craft, and today manages a career and household scarred by the very public betrayals that tabloid cameras love to replay. Robin Harris, born August 30th, 1953, exploded onto the Harlem Nights set in 1989 at the age of 36 as Jerome, a lightning-fast talker whose raw, unpolished humor could steal the oxygen from any room. Jerome's brashness was pure. Harris, a South Side Chicago kid who grew up watching his father work long shifts while his mother fought to keep food on the table, surviving winters when the heat was shut off and dodging taunts about his hand-me-down clothes. Comedy became both shield and weapon, first at schoolyard fights, then on nightclub stages. Harris's climb was steep. Years of bombing at amateur nights, being told his humor was too black, too real for TV, and losing a coveted sitcom role after network execs deemed him uncontrollable. His stand-up act, especially Bebe's Kids, turned him into a cult phenomenon, but his offstage life was chaotic. He was notorious for arriving late to shows, nursing glasses of cognac between sets, and verbally eviscerating hecklers so brutally that some clubs refused to rebook him. He gambled impulsively, once losing an entire weekend's earnings at a single poker table in Vegas, then taking the stage hours later, still in the same smoky suit. Harris had a loyal partner and a newborn son when Harlem Nights dropped, but the relentless touring schedule wore him thin, and friends noticed his chronic fatigue and shortness of breath long before he admitted anything was wrong. On March 18, 1990, just 4 months after the film's release, he died in his sleep in Los Angeles from cardiac arrhythmia at 36. His $250,000 estate included his home, a modest savings account, and intellectual property rights to his routines, which after his death would fuel the animated cult classic Bebe's Kids, cementing his legend, but leaving behind the cruel truth that his biggest payday came after he was gone. Thank you for joining us on this nostalgic journey through classic television history. If you enjoyed learning about the cast of Harlem Nights and where they are now, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe for more vintage Hollywood retrospectives, and share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your memories and suggestions, so let us know which TV show or movie cast you'd like us to feature next.